Hey guys, it's Reese Treno from the Vanguard team at Mander Realty, doing another interview today. And I brought on a guy that I have known for a long time. And I think he's a mortgage broker. His name's Joe Bondy from the Super Mortgage team. And he's got a new product or a new service, I guess. New service, right, Joe? And it's really interesting. You stick around with people, guys, that sort of, if you've got passion and innovation, you tend to keep a few people around you that also are sharp and are always trying to find other solutions to problems. And right now, you guys know, in the real estate industry, we have all kinds of problems. We don't have enough housing. And yet, at the same time, people that want housing can't always afford that housing, even though we need the housing. It's a horrible situation for everybody. It really is. But Joe has figured out a very interesting thing. And look, the national news has picked this up, guys. This is not schlub stuff. He's picked up a solution partially to the problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Joe, welcome to the podcast interview stuff that we do here.
Thank you so much, Reese. Great to be a part of it. And, we kind of grew up together in the real estate industry. We started at the same time many moons ago when I had a full head of hair. And
Yeah. Well, hey, don't blame me, man. Yeah. So yeah, Joe. When Joe started off in being a mortgage specialist with one of the big five banks, there were two top agents that really supported him early on, and I was one of them. I was one of his first guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Of course, dude. Win-win situation. Look, guys, if you're buying and investing out there, right? I don't care which one it is. You have to surround yourself with the best people, right? So a lot of you know that already work with us. If you work with us, you're not working just with us. You're working with the best of the best that we have down in Essex County, right? And Joe's one of those guys and his team, right? He's learned to build a team like I've learned to build a team, which is you find people that share your morals and ethics, and then you train them up so that they share your knowledge base and your abilities. And that's what Joe's got, right?
Absolutely. We're up to 23 agents on the team now and going strong. So.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So tell us about the service. You have something called the Super Mortgage Mingle. Tell us all about it, Joe.
Yeah, so over the last few years, with the housing prices going up as much as they have, I've had a lot of people who came into my office for pre-approvals, recent graduates, recently separated or divorced people
Right.
who, used to be able to buy a beautiful raised ranch for 300 to 350, and now to even get a starter home that's not in the best shape, it's 350 at least if you can win that bidding war, right? So I kept becoming the dream crusher, saying, sorry, you can afford 300, you could afford 280, you could afford, 350. And when I started, that was magic numbers. Those were gold. But today, you're struggling to even find a place. So,
It's horrible that you even had to describe yourself as a dream crusher. And I know what you mean. Like you and I are so passionate about the business and helping people. Like we've talked about this over beers. Like we get paid to help people.
yeah,
We get
absolutely.
paid to help people's dreams.
We have the best
Eh,
job
eh,
in the world. We,
So
we
to
make
hear
people
you,
happy for a living.
so to hear you say dream crusher, that I have to be the dream crusher, that's horrible. That is completely opposite to what you want to be.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jeez, oh
So
Peter.
that being said, I thought, how can we help these people out? How can we, put families into homes, which has been my motto since the start.
Right.
And, you know, I know in the bigger cities and in Europe, this has been happening for quite some time where friends, family join together
Yeah.
and buy a house together, right?
Yes. Yes.
So this is where I've basically rolled this out about 10 days ago. We've got 80 people on a list now and counting. And it's all people, like-minded people that want home ownership that can't afford it on their own or struggling to afford it on their own. Who the mingle part means we're going to host events where we put all these like-minded people in like situations into a room together. And Windsor's small. You're bound to know when you got 40, 50 people in a room, you're going to know 3 to 5 people at least, right?
Sure. Sure. That's
So,
right.
you might have not talked to this guy since you went to high school with him or this girl since, maybe you dated her in ninth grade. Who knows? But you come together and you start talking and you're like, hey, you know, I want to own a house and I want to own a house. And together you can each buy 300,000, but jointly now you can buy 6 to 650
Sure.
because you've got those synergies, right? Of coming together, you have the bigger buying power. Well, then you could buy a duplex. Each person lives on each side, and it's a primary residence, right? So, first off, you can buy with 5% down as long as your credit supports it. Or if you're two people buying together, two and a half and two and a half. So, you don't even have to have that full 5%.
Right.
And then
Right.
you grow together. Instead of renting, you're now buying a house and you're growing your equity, which becomes tax-free dollars down the road when you sell this place or you go your separate ways.
I got lots of questions.
Fire.
So my first question is, what if I live in Toronto and I want to mingle? Do I have to come down physically?
Well, so the idea of the mingle is for people in the same area. So if you had two
Okay.
people in Toronto that wanted to mingle, they could do so,
Sure.
right? But for somebody in Toronto to buy a place in Windsor, unless they're doing it with a family member, the lenders aren't going to be supportive of that. So there are different companies out there that will assist you
Right.
with, if you had 5% down, they'll put up the other 15%. They own three-quarters of the house, and you own, a quarter of the house.
Oh, they started doing that in Canada now? Because I know they were doing that
They
a lot in
did,
the
but they're not
States.
in Windsor yet. They
Ah,
They're as
okay.
far as London, as I understand it right now, but they haven't hit
Okay.
Windsor yet. But this is a way for us to get Windsorites
Right.
who've pretty much priced out of the market or recently graduated people. You graduate from university or college and you're making 60 grand a year, which used to be an amazing first job, and now you can't afford to get into the market,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So,
Sure. So, okay. So then this is for somebody that is going to physically move into the property. Am I allowed? Let's say I've got two friends from high school. They're mingling. They already like each other,
yeah,
and they're both at this thing. They're both single, right? I'm
yeah.
assuming there's going to be a lot of single people that are going to try to join forces to compete with sort of
Well,
double income, no kids couples, right?
Well, you could do that. You can have families even, if they
Yeah.
want to, like with the ADUs now, the duplexes, triplexes, you can buy these places now, right?
Well, that was my
Or
next question. Like, and you see this in Europe all the time. So, okay, so it could be a duplex, but it could also be a house where you add a mother-in-law suite into the basement. I mean, either
yeah,
they do it themselves or they buy one that's already got one.
correct. The key
Okay.
here is for it to be owner occupied because
Yeah.
that minimizes the down payment and that also gives you that tax-free revenue when you go to sell down the road.
I could even see, but how about like two investors? Two investors, and I'm not talking, I know you, when you hear investor, you think don't live there. I'm talking about two investors starting out. They want to start investing, they want to buy, but they're 20, 24 years old.
Yeah.
And if we could get two investors to buy a duplex together and build a third unit, you can build an additional dwelling unit now with a
You
duplex.
can. The problem with the additional dwelling units, very hard to finance
Yeah.
because if you don't pay for that additional dwelling, the banks or lenders can't go onto that property and take it back because it's all one title, all one deed.
Right.
So you
Right.
could build an additional unit if it was attached or
Yeah.
part of the main structure,
Okay.
as long as it's a smaller square footage than the existing house.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Good. Yeah.
So
Look.
I have talked to a couple builders
Yeah.
and I said, you know what? Like a lot of builders have $1 million products in the ground, 3,000 square foot homes that they can't move right now with the high interest rates and that.
No.
But if they could chop it up into 3 units, now you have, three people who could afford, 350,000 each could buy this big 3,000 square foot home. We can finance it because it's one property,
Yeah.
right? And then you have
Yeah.
three, somebody living upstairs,
So
middle
what are the
section.
builders saying to that?
Uh, they're kind of minds blown, and some of them are actually starting to design a product.
They
Like
are they? Oh, there you
they're,
go.
they're even talking like, oh yeah, I thought of it, and we could have two-car garage, and I put a wall down the middle of the
Yeah,
two-car garage, so both units each get their own garage. One
yeah.
goes upstairs, one goes downstairs. The raised ranch concept, but as
It's
long
so
as you have
funny now how
two acres.
residential density, because it's becoming a necessity. Um, it's interesting now to see, it shift from, I mean, for the entire time you and I have been in the business, it's been, let's build a raised ranch in a bean field. Let's
Yeah.
build a raised ranch in a bean field. Let's build a raised over and over and over. I mean, you just want to puke. Like, how about some variety? How about some density so that you can have a pub nearby to walk to instead of driving everywhere to like Chick-fil-A or something? Like, I don't know, man.
Well, we have
I
a lot
just,
of land here. That's the problem, right?
yeah, well, yeah, but you also have the most fertile farmland in
That
all
is
of
true.
Canada, and we're building on it. And we're not building up anywhere. There's no missing middle. There's no 6-8 unit.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's time for that stuff. Yeah, and you're seeing the rules change now, right? Like all the incentives from the different levels of government are all to build apartment buildings by public transit, and then we'll give you lots of money and we'll forgive your sales taxes, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that being said, there's a huge push for suburbia to start having up to 2 additional dwelling units on their land, and NIMBYs can't fight it, right? Because it's such a necessity, man. And people don't realize when you add residential density and you add that foot traffic, you're going to have more amenities that are walkable because there's more people to support that walkable amenity, right? Like, as I said, the
Right.
neighborhood pub, because I'm a European mentality. I want to walk to the pub. I want to walk home. Right? I
Yeah.
want to see my friends at the pub. We all went walking our dogs. We had a pint of beer. We caught up, go home. You know, and you don't have that in suburbia, right? The other thing is, as well, is people think that you're sort of safe from crime out in suburbia, right? It's lower crime. Well, we're now seeing the demographics change. The bad guys have adjusted. They know if they live in the suburbs, there's less cops out there. So now you're seeing way more drug dealers living in suburbia, and people that are problems. Like every time there's somebody shooting up a house now, do you notice it's not downtown? They're spraying the bullets in suburbia because that's where the bad guys live in. So you get more protected from that with more foot traffic, with the greater
Right.
density, right? So what you're advocating with a mingle, it's actually not just solving the pain point for that individual or two individuals in that case to get together. It's also solving a societal pain point, which is your model, your super mortgage mingle is, because I mean, it's great that they're mingling, but they still don't want to live in the same house necessarily, in the same unit, right?
No, but I mean, it could be brother and sister who have been living together for so many
Sure,
years, or
sure.
cousins who have known each other for years, right? We're not talking strangers here. We're talking
No, but
people
at the
who
same
know each
time,
other.
right, they're going to have some sort of knowledge of
Right.
each other, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could buy a fourplex with 10% down, right? So you have four people each living in an individual unit, 2.5% each, as long as the fourplex isn't over $1 million,
There you go. Okay. You
right?
mean
So,
25% each?
well, you can buy it with 10% down, a fourplex, as long as it's owner occupied.
Oh, right. So you don't need a ton of down payment at that point.
Exactly. So
Oh,
you've
that's
got an
interesting.
800,000 or $900,000 fourplex. You got four buddies who are going to live in there for 10% down.
Do they have separate mortgages or is it all one mortgage?
It's all one mortgage. You're all
What
on
happens
the
if
same
one of them
thing.
screws up and isn't paying?
So we have legal documentation up front,
Okay.
a type of partnership agreement right from the start that has shotgun clauses where if somebody loses their job or somebody screws up or stops paying, the other one can force the sale. If somebody brings in a spouse or a significant other who could stake claim to the equity, they're not allowed to, right? They can only have the equity of the individual that brought them in.
Right,
So
right, right.
you got a
And of
big
course on death
contract
and that sort of
that,
thing as well, right?
like a partnership agreement, palimony agreement, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
that settle, puts through just about every situation that could happen. What if there's a death? So everybody's registered as tenants in common so that if there's a death, the estate gets the 50% or half of that equity or whatever the
That's
share
interesting.
was.
Yeah.
And then everybody has to get independent legal advice so they know what they're getting into. So they go into this eyes wide open. And then, they sign a waiver saying that the realtor and the mortgage agent are simply providing a service and have nothing to do with the actual people getting together.
When you talk about this, it's kind of like I remember one of my buddies from the old law school days moved to Toronto, and he owned a unit in a fourplex, but it was a co-op, right? So it's different, isn't it? A co-op. They kind of
Oh,
all
it's
sort of
different. Very
amorphously
hard
own
to
type.
finance. Yeah,
What's that?
very hard to finance.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
So this is easier to finance. That's my next
right.
question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
So
it's
four
strict.
unit, like fourplexes and under, very easy to finance. The insurers are on board. The lenders are on board. I've talked to several different lenders, and they'll register the title. Tenants in
Okay.
common. And I mean, say you had you know more than half of the down payment, you could register it 60/40 if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're still 100% responsible for the mortgage. Each individual, no matter what their share is 100% responsible for the mortgage because the lenders only care that they're being paid.
Yeah. So you kind of. I mean, my instinct would be to have one person to worry about. You know what I mean? Like one sister or one buddy. Because as soon as you
Yeah,
get up to like four, life changes. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. You're increasing your risk by the more people you bring into it.
Yeah.
Something could
Yeah.
go wrong, but
Do you expect most people to just be mono a mono, like two people kind of sharing the mortgage? Is that?
I think that's going to be the bulk of it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless you
And
get like family members where you got three siblings who are going to get into this together.
okay. Okay. Guys, as always, if you're watching this, you can subscribe below. Also below, I will post Joe's website for this specific product, which I believe is supermortgagemingle.com, right?
That's it. And you can
Supermortgagemingle.com.
sign
And
up
as always,
there, and
yep.
then you would get invited. Once you're pre-approved, you get invited to our Mingle events, and you can meet your potential new housemate, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, if you're interested, certainly do that. And you can reach out to us and, go in to grab that duplex. Guys, if you also go to those investment networking sort of events and functions, now you can go in with a different purpose, right? Now you can go in and try to find that other uh, typically young professional that's still flexible and is still okay moving down to Windsor. I see this quite a bit. Well, if you find, and I see also that they don't have enough money quite a bit. So if you are now partnering with another aspiring investor and you're both moving down to Windsor and you're both sharing in a duplex, well, congratulations, guys and gals. Now you're in the game, right? So as you go to those income property mingling events, now you can go in with the mindset, guys, that you've got somebody like Joe that can do the financing for both of you, combine those powers in a specific way that protects you from them at the same time, right? Like the shotgun clause and all that kind of stuff, right? Which you don't have if you just go into a partnership necessarily, guys. You got to make sure you write all that stuff in. And I see this stuff get missed all the time. In fact, it happened to me one time. I didn't have a shotgun clause and I wanted out with a specific business partner and I couldn't. And our lawyers, it cost a bit of extra money and it cost a bit extra time, got it done. But, lawyers miss that stuff, man. So it's good to have a nice boilerplate with it. This is really interesting, Joe, man. Do you have anything to add before we wrap it up?
No, I think this is a great way to assist, people into getting into the market, home affordability, and I hope it really takes off. The media seems to love it because, like
Yeah.
you said earlier, it's gone national all over the
Yeah.
place. I'm getting calls from Vancouver to Toronto. Can you join my podcast? Can you do this? Like, so
Oh, so I'm
it's
not alone. Okay.
you're not alone, but you're the first podcast. The next one's next
Yeah.
week's.
Well, when
Yeah.
when I heard about it and I heard it was my old buddy Joe, I was just like, oh, this is so interesting. So, and of course, Joe invited sort of a lot of the top agents to the initial sort of. He tried to entice us with food, and I hate to say it, that really works, Joe. It works.
It
Yeah,
does work. Yeah.
yeah. Food is my love language, buddy.
Although you missed it, you signed on virtually, so you couldn't get the food.
No, I know. I couldn't get there, man. I was so ticked off. Yeah, but yeah, it was really interesting, and I'm glad you came on today, guys. Again, I'll have everything below. You can subscribe below. The links to Joe's stuff is below. I'll also link one of the news reports, like the CTV or the CBC one, Joe, so everybody can read that. And yeah, pitter patter, get at her, man. I'm glad you came on.
Sounds good. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, guys, this is Reese Treno for the Vanguard team at Manor Realty. That's Joe Bondy from the Super Mortgage team, both in Windsor, Ontario. Until next time.
Thank you, guys.